Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to Elite Dangerous with the mighty Jingles. Although possibly not quite as mighty as I may like you to believe, after the disastrous start to my quest to score myself some manufactured raw materials for the engineering process, by taking on a contract to kill a couple of pirates in my brand new Python multi-role ship armed with some top-of-the-line and extremely power-thirsty beam lasers, which were, very unfortunately, powered by the cheapest power plant I could get my hands on. So naturally I pressed the fire button and my entire ship shut down. And I think the only reason I survived that is because my targets were too busy pissing their pants with laughter to go to the trouble of killing me, or possibly they just felt sorry for me, I don't know. Either option is equally likely. So, lesson learned, hopefully. Top-of-the-line weapons either need to be backed up with top-of-the-line power plants and power distributors, or they need to be engineered to reduce their power draw and increase their efficiency. And since the whole reason I'm out here doing this is because I don't have enough manufactured engineering materials, top-of-the-line power plant and power distributor it is. There are other options, of course. If the combined total power draw of all of your active systems exceeds the output of your power plant, then you can disable non-essential systems, stuff that you don't actually need in combat. Or, instead of using beam lasers, which are the most power-hungry types of laser weapons, you could use burst or pulse lasers. They don't do as much damage, but they don't draw nearly as much power either, and they also don't generate nearly as much heat, which is another problem when you're using energy weapons. Aha, but Jingles, you ruggedly handsome old bastard, I hear you say. Why bother with energy weapons at all? Why not use ballistic weapons like multi-cannons? And yes, it's true, multi-cannons draw very little power and they generate very little heat. But they're also almost completely useless against shields. On the other hand, while laser weapons are very good at dealing with shields, they're not so hot, pun intended, when it comes to dealing with hull armour. And ballistic weapons are, so you generally need a mix of the two. And if you don't already have the engineering materials and the engineering contacts to modify them for increased efficiency, you're going to need a really good power plant. And this is why I find myself back at the Jameson Memorial Orbital in the Shinrarta-Desra system, trying to get the best power plant that I can possibly afford for the money. I'm not doing too badly for money. I mean, this shouldn't be a huge issue, but a 7D power plant, which is the lightest weight but has absolutely terrible power output, is definitely not going to do. And holy shit, that's an expensive piece of equipment, but, well, I kind of need it. And straight away you can see the two bars at the bottom of the screen, which indicate the amount of power draw while all of my hardpoints are retracted and while they're deployed. And I now have a very tasty margin for error. So how about upgrading my thrusters, which are also the cheapest pieces of shit that you can possibly fit to this ship. It's going to increase the power draw, but it's going to make the ship a lot faster and improve the pitch, roll and yaw rates. So we'll go ahead and do that. It's also pretty expensive. Power distributor, shield generator. Yeah, I also have a terrible shield generator. I can't help but think that these are all the sort of things that I probably should have done the last time I left this station, rather than just strapping the three biggest and most power-thirsty beam lasers I could possibly afford to the ship's hardpoint. But hey, lesson learned, and nobody got harmed in the process. Except my reputation. And my dignity. I didn't really have much of a reputation, and I've certainly got no dignity anyway, so like I said, nothing harmed in the process. So, having kitted the Python out not just with the most power-hungry weapons it can possibly carry, but also with a top-of-the-line power plant, power distributor, thrusters and shield generator, it's time to try again. I'm in the NUNET system, just a couple of light years away from the Shinrarta-Desra system, using the filtered spectral scanner to isolate and identify those unidentified signal sources, and one of them has been identified as a potential source of weapons fire, which almost certainly means I can find a fight. This time my power plant is more than good enough to ensure that I don't have to worry about shutting down and isolating non-essential systems before I go into combat. And it looks like we have a couple of Federal Security Service ships engaged in a dogfight with a bunch of pirates. And according to Holly, somebody's shooting at me. Oh, that was a bit rude. I didn't do anything, did I? First hostile contact is a Cobra Mark III, and he's already done a bit of a number on my shields, but they are holding. Weapons deployed. I've got my left mouse button set up to fire the beam lasers and the right mouse button to fire the multi-cannons. But my beam lasers are making really short work of his shields. Although they are still drawing an awful lot of power from the capacitor, even with 4 pips to weapons, the power distributor is struggling to keep those beam lasers charged, and they are generating a lot of heat as well. But they recharge quickly, and with a couple of seconds of finger off the trigger, they're fully charged again. So I give him all 3 of the beam lasers and the multi-cannons, and that's him taken care of. Just 1 to go. Next target is an Anaconda, who's already taken a savage beating from the 2 feds. A couple of bursts from the beam laser, and he's down too, with a 152,000 credit bounty. So that was actually pretty easy. I mean, the beam lasers do draw a lot of power, and I can't fire them for particularly long without draining the capacitor, and they do generate a lot of heat as well. But the combination of an A-grade power plant and power distributor is putting enough power back into the weapon's capacitor that I can pretty much have them fully charged with just a couple of seconds of not firing. But having killed the 2 pirates, it's time to go combing through the wreckage for their stuff, which is the whole point of this exercise. So I popped open my cargo hatch. I've released a limpet, which is automatically going to go and hoover up any useful things in the wreckage. Things like, just wait for it to deliver its cargo. Here we go, new material discovered. Manufactured compound shielding. Manufactured engineering materials from the wreckage of the ships that we've destroyed. So I'm just going to sit here and let the limpets do their thing and go and scoop up all of that lovely, crunchy, chewy, manufactured engineering material goodness. You don't have to use collector limpets to do this, but you're really going to want to. At least after the first couple of times you've tried to do it without collector limpets, because the alternative is to just deploy your cargo hatch and then very slowly and very carefully try to fly over each piece of materials and manually scoop them into your cargo hatch. And it can be done, but holy shit, it's tedious. So get yourself a collector limpet controller, buy a couple of limpets and let them do the hard work. It's also important, by the way, unless you want to go through limpets very, very quickly, that you don't actually target the materials that you want them to collect. Just let them do their thing. If you do specifically want the limpet to target something for retrieval, say for example there's one specific item that you need and you need it fast and then you need to get the hell out of there, then yeah, specifically target it, release a limpet, and it will retrieve that one article for you very, very quickly, and then the limpet will expire. And if there's anything else out there that you need, you'll have to use another limpet. At the moment, I've sent a couple of limpets out, but I'm not specifically targeting anything. So they're picking up anything in the vicinity that I haven't already added to my ignore list. And then they're going out and they're picking up anything else that's still floating out there that I haven't specifically added to my ignore list until they've picked up everything. And now there are no valid collection targets. Well, there actually are, but they're out of range. My limpets are just hovering underneath my cargo bay until I get close enough to something that they can zip out, scoop up, and bring back. So this is the most obvious and straightforward way of farming manufactured engineering materials. It's not the most efficient, but this is just one way of doing it. I identified a signal source that had a threat level associated with it, flew to that signal source, dropped out a supercruise, found myself a couple of pirates, killed them and took their stuff. You can do this far more profitably by taking missions in orbital stations to fly to unidentified signal sources, find pirates, kill them, and take their stuff. You can also go cruising around things like resource extraction sites, typically found in the ring systems of, well, I was going to say gas giants. It's not just gas giants that can have ring systems, all kinds of planets can. In fact, I've even seen a couple of stars that have ring systems, usually brown dwarfs, which aren't really stars, they're just gas giants with a weight problem. Now, cruising around resource extraction sites and getting jumped on by pirates isn't actually that dangerous, because they'll mostly leave you alone unless they scan you and see something valuable in your cargo bay. If all you're carrying are collection limpets, you're absolutely fine. And generally you can get the jump on them. Top tip, however, although this tip doesn't really apply in hazardous resource extraction sites because there is no security response in a hazardous resource extraction site. But do get into the habit of at least scanning them first before you go in all guns blazing to ensure that they are actually wanted. I mean, generally anybody who flies up to you and scans you in a resource extraction site is going to be wanted, but just opening fire before scanning them to make sure that they're wanted will get you in trouble. Even if the guy does turn out to be a wanted criminal, the fact that you didn't scan him and verify his wanted status before blowing his sorry ass to hell will result in the kind of official attention that you probably don't want. But I did verify this guy's status, I did blow him away, and now I'm taking his stuff. Oh, one other thing. Do be careful when you're doing this that you also add any cargo canisters to your exclusion list so that your limpets don't go picking them up too. Because those are stolen goods. And if you're not paying attention, and, I don't know, maybe the pirate dropped a canister of grandidiorite or some other kind of mineral. They'll sometimes do that, by the way. Right before they die, sometimes they'll dump their cargo in an effort to buy you off. And if you're not careful, and you haven't told your limpets otherwise, they will quite happily scoop that up too. And those are stolen goods. And if you're not paying attention, and you're heading back to the nearest orbital to redeem all of those bounty vouchers that you gained for slaughtering all of those pirates, and you happen to be carrying, unwittingly, a couple of tons of illicit goods in your cargo bay that your collector limpets just scooped up without bothering to check first, you can be in a lot of trouble when your ship gets scanned as soon as you get within 7.5 kilometers of the station. So do pay attention to exactly what it is that your collection limpets are doing while you're busy going through all of the stuff that you want. Now, as I alluded to in the previous episode, while I definitely consider this to be the least boring way of collecting manufactured engineering materials, it's not the only way of collecting manufactured engineering materials, and if combat just isn't your bag, baby, well, you can farm this stuff without ever having to warm up your lasers. And there are principally two ways of doing it. The first involves those unidentified signal sources that you keep seeing as you fly through various systems. If you scan the system with your filtered spectral scanner, you can identify those unidentified signal sources. And things like degraded emissions are typically going to be the combat aftermath of a battle, and you'll be able to find some materials there, although they won't be particularly high grade. If you manage to find any high grade emissions, however, you've pretty much hit the jackpot, because they're going to be completely safe, there'll be no combat required, and they're going to be full of rare and very rare manufactured materials. You can even determine exactly what type of materials you're likely to find based on the system in which you find the high-grade emissions. For example, in a system controlled by the Federation, you'll find core dynamics composites and proprietary composites. In a system controlled by the Empire, you'll find Imperial shielding. In a system undergoing a state of war or civil war, you'll find military-grade alloys and military supercapacitors. I'll put a link in the video description to exactly what you can find in specific systems in the way of high-grade emissions. On a related issue, and something I probably should have mentioned in the last episode, is another extremely fast and profitable method of farming raw engineering materials. It involves taking a trip to the Arere system, specifically Planet 2b in the Arere system. There is actually another place that's apparently specifically good for this sort of thing. It's the planet Dav's Hope in the Hyades sector, but I haven't been there, so I can only really speak about the Arere system. On Planet 2b in this system, you're going to find a crashed Anaconda. More importantly, you're going to find a crashed Anaconda that spilt the contents of its cargo racks all over the surrounding terrain. And much in the same way as you could with Commander Jameson's crashed Mark I Cobra in the encoded materials video, you can simply log out and log back in again as many times as you like and continue farming those materials for as long as you have the patience for it. I believe once you get within a certain distance of the planet, the actual location oh, hang on a second. Seriously? I'm being interdicted? I don't even think I have anything valuable in my cargo bay. Actually, you know what? I'm not even going to bother to attempt to escape. I'm just going to zero the throttle, kill him and take his stuff instead. Well, I'm going to try. I'm in my ASP. I can't even remember what weapons it has. Oh, seeker missiles and beam lasers. And I think it's only on with those because I was getting them engineered. Ooh, a federal dropship. Yeah, he's... You know what? Even if this doesn't work, my asp is fast enough to run away. By the way, don't do what I just did there. Don't hit somebody with missiles, explosive weapons, while the shields are still up, because they'll basically do nothing. But they do a lot of damage once the shields are down. Of course, the downside to guided weapons like seeker missiles is that they can be defeated by simply dropping chaff and denying them a target lock. They can be shot down by point defense systems, and they can be countermanded by electronic countermeasure systems. But if your opponent isn't using them, and you're hitting them in the face with 4 of them at once, they do a lot of damage very quickly. Even though these are only small, class 1 seeker missile pods, because the ASP only has 2 medium and 4 small hardpoints. The other downside, of course, and it's a fairly big one, is that you don't get reloads for them in flight. Although, well, that's not strictly true. You can synthesize them, but that's using up engineering materials that are far better used for, engineering. So, once they're gone, they're gone. Well, anyway, before we were so rudely interrupted by a federal dropship who presumably thought there might be some glue in my cargo bay for him to sniff, we were on the way to Arere 2b, which, as the name would suggest, is the second moon of the second planet in the system. Coordinates for the crashed ship appearing on screen right now, although if you're this close and or you've mapped the planet, the location should be popping up on screen anyway. And at this location you're going to find a crashed Anaconda that's scattered the contents of its cargo racks all over the surrounding area. Now, you can absolutely pick this stuff up. It's legal salvage. You won't get into trouble for having it. And you will find cargo canisters scattered around the wreck containing all kinds of valuable materials like gold and palladium and so on and so on. The only real issue is that your SRV can only carry 2 units at a time, so ferrying them back and forth between your ship and where you pick them up will probably start to get quite tedious. But we're not really interested in these. What we're here for are the contents of the cargo racks themselves, because they are absolutely chock full of extremely high-grade raw engineering materials. And in exactly the same way that we kept flipping the board when we were gathering encoded engineering materials at Commander Jameson's crashed Mark 1 Cobra site, once you've cleared this location, just log out, log back in again, and everything will have respawned. So you can quite literally keep doing this as long as you've got the patience for it. Try not, however, to lose sight of the reason why we're doing this. We're not gathering these materials just for the sake of it. We're gathering these materials so we can use them to get our ships upgraded. At this point I already have grade 4 access to Felicity Farseer, and that's enough to provoke the interest of another engineer who goes by the name of Yuri Ishmark and get an invitation to go and see him. Technically at this stage that's really all you need Felicity Farseer for, although you should probably continue to upgrade your access to her until you've at least gotten your frameshift drives engineered up to grade 5. Now, we're not going to go straight after Yuri Ishmark just yet, because there is one other engineer who goes by the name of Elvira Martuk that should at this point become available to us. In order to receive an invitation from Elvira, you just have to have travelled 300 light years or more from your start position. And that is why when we had to get the meta-alloys that Felicity Farseer wanted before she'd even talked to us, we flew all the way to the Merope system in order to farm them, rather than simply buying them from the station at Darnielle's Progress, because that took us more than 300 light years away from our start location. Also, farming encoded materials at Commander Jameson's crash site takes you more than 300 light years from your start location, and is also a fantastic way of farming encoded materials. So we've done enough to get the invitation from Elvira Martuk. We've flown more than 300 light years, but in order to actually start doing business with Elvira Martuk, we're going to have to provide her with 3 Soontil relics. Now, I don't know what a Soontil relic is. I couldn't tell you whether it swims in the ocean, swings through the trees, or arrives in a taxi. It's just what? I don't know. But I do know that here in the Naguri system, at the Cheranovsky City orbital, they sell them. I still don't know what they are, but they're not that expensive. You can buy them on the commodity market for less than 20,000 credits per ton, and you only need 3 of them. So stop off here at Chernovsky City, head to the commodities market. Oh, I'm just going to refuel first. And they're highlighted in yellow because they're a very special item, rare goods. Oh, the price has actually dropped. I heard there were 19,000 credits per ton. It's actually down to 17,000. Yeah, pocket change. You only need 3, so it's not exactly going to break the bank. Buy your 3 relics. You're going to need a ship with a cargo rack, obviously, in order to carry them. Conclude any further business that you have here in Chernovsky City. Then head to your galaxy map. And we are going to be plotting a course to the Khun system. That's probably not how you pronounce it, but it's spelt Khun. It is a fair old distance away. It's just short 400 light years away from Naguri, but this is where you're going to find Elvira Martok. And now you've not only travelled, in fact you would have travelled more than 300 light years at this point just to get to where she is, but you also have the 3 relics that she's going to want before she'll even agree to start doing business with you. The thing that you're going to find about Elvira Martok is that she's... well, it's not that she's a bad engineer. She does have grade 5 access to frame shift drive upgrades, but you've already got that from Felicity Farseer. She also offers grade 3 access to shield generators, grade 2 access to thrusters, and grade 1 access to shield cell banks. But the real reason you're here is that improving your reputation with Elvira Martok is going to earn you invitations from 2 further engineers, and they go by the names of Zachariah Nemo and Marco Quent. Now, if frag cannons are your thing, Zachariah Nemo is your man. And Marco Quent doesn't actually offer you access to anything particularly good, but he is a stepping stone to other, better engineers, in pretty much exactly the same way that Elvira Martok here is. The problem with Marco Quent is that actually getting access to him can be kind of tricky, because you'll find him at the Quent research base in the Sirius system, and the Sirius system is a closed system. You require a permit to even plot a jump to the Sirius system. In fact, Marco Quent is where things do really start to get quite complicated, because not only is he located in a closed system, he's also going to require that you provide him with 25 units of modular terminals, and modular terminals are a commodity that is only available as a mission reward. And the other engineers that he unlocks, well, one in particular, Professor Palin, is going to require that you have flown more than 5,000 light years from your start point. So in the next episode, we're going to be starting down the Marco Quent grind. And we're going to be trying to get as many of these things done as efficiently and quickly as possible. Thanks, by the way, to Fox's step-by-step guide to unlocking engineers. It's a Reddit post. It's a couple of years old, but it's mostly still in date, and I can't really recommend it highly enough because it provided the basis for this entire video series, which I hope you're enjoying, because that's it for today. As always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.